Good news arrives, and your first thought is, what's the catch? Maybe it's a message from your boss that just says, "Can we talk tomorrow?" And your mind is already writing the worst version of that conversation. Maybe it's a quiet afternoon, nothing wrong, nothing happening, and somehow that quiet feels like the calm before something bad. Maybe it's even smaller than that. A friend takes a little longer to reply than usual, and before you notice it, you've already imagined 3 reasons they might be upset with you. You've probably called this being realistic, or just preparing for anything, but there might be something quieter running underneath that. A pattern your mind built a long time ago to keep you safe from being caught off guard, and it never quite learned when to stop. Welcome back to Mind Antler. Today, we're looking at 9 quiet signs that your mind has learned to expect the worst, even when the worst isn't actually coming. Sign 1. Do you brace yourself before you even open a message? You see a text from someone important. Before you've read a single word, your chest is already tight. You're scanning for the bad news before you know if there is any. Maybe your thumb even hovers over the notification for a second longer than it needs to, like you're gathering yourself before impact. Here's what's actually happening. Your mind isn't reacting to this message. It's reacting to every message that ever came with something painful attached. Somewhere along the way, it learned that unread meant unsafe. So now it braces first and reads second, just in case. Even a simple, "Hey, you free later?" can trigger the same tightness as bad news once did. Here's another one to sit with. Sign 2. Do good things make you suspicious instead of relieved? Something goes right. A relationship feels steady, work feels calm, and instead of enjoying it, part of you is waiting for it to fall apart. You might even catch yourself thinking, "This is nice, but it won't last." This is what some psychologists call a negativity bias, tilted so far that even safety gets treated like a warning sign. If bad things have shown up right after good ones before, your mind starts treating good moments as suspicious by default. Not because you're ungrateful. Because your mind is still trying to protect you from being blindsided again, it would rather you brace for a fall than enjoy a moment it can't fully trust. Here's another one to sit with. Sign 3. Do you rehearse worst-case scenarios, just in case? Before a hard conversation, before a trip, before an ordinary Tuesday, you've already played out 3 different ways it could go wrong. You tell yourself it's just being prepared. Maybe you've even rehearsed how you'd respond if the worst version actually happened. But underneath that, there's often an old belief that if you don't imagine the disaster first, it will catch you unprepared. Rehearsing the worst can feel like control, even when nothing is actually threatening you right now. The rehearsal itself starts to feel safer than simply waiting to see what happens. Here's another one to sit with. Sign 4. Do compliments feel like they come with a hidden condition? Someone tells you that you did something well, and instead of simply taking it in, some part of you is already looking for what they might want in return, or waiting for the moment they take it back. You might even deflect it out loud, almost automatically. This often comes from learning, early on, that kindness wasn't always safe to trust. Maybe it came with strings. Maybe it disappeared without warning. So your mind holds compliments at arm's length, just in case they're not what they seem. It's easier to stay guarded than to be caught off guard by kindness that turns out to be conditional. Here's another one to sit with. Sign 5. Do you over-prepare for things that don't actually call for it? A simple meeting turns into hours of rehearsing what could go wrong. A small trip turns into a list of every possible disaster, not because the stakes are high, because some part of you doesn't trust that things can just go fine. Even something as small as a dentist appointment can quietly turn into a mental checklist of everything that could go sideways. This is your mind trying to outplan uncertainty. If it can predict every bad outcome, it feels like it can prevent one, even though most of what it's preparing for will never happen. The exhausting part isn't the planning itself, it's that the planning never quite feels like enough. Here's another one to sit with. Sign 6. Does silence from someone feel like the beginning of losing them? They go quiet for a day, No response, no explanation. And your mind doesn't think they're busy. It thinks something is wrong or they're pulling away. You might even start replaying your last conversation, looking for what you could have said differently. If people in your life were once unpredictable, if closeness sometimes vanished without warning, silence can start to feel like the first sign of abandonment. Even when, most of the time, it's just silence. Your mind fills the quiet with a story because an unanswered question feels harder to sit with than a painful answer. Here's another one to sit with. Sign 7. Do you keep a running list of everything that could go wrong? Not written down, just there, quietly, in the background of your mind. A private inventory of what might fail, who might leave, what might break. It updates itself constantly, almost without you noticing. This list isn't random anxiety. It's a survival strategy your mind built at some point when things actually did go wrong without warning. The list was supposed to help you see it coming next time. It just never learned to close, so it keeps running long after the situation that built it is gone. Here's another one to sit with. Sign 8. Does relaxing itself feel dangerous, like you're missing something? You finally have a free evening. Nothing to fix, nothing to prepare for, and instead of relief, there's this low hum of unease, like you're forgetting something important. You might even invent a small task, just to feel like you're doing something useful again. For a mind that's used to staying alert, rest doesn't feel peaceful. It feels exposed. Like the moment you stop scanning is the moment something slips through. So even stillness gets treated like a risk, and the guard never quite gets to come down. Here's another one to sit with. Sign 9. Do you feel more comfortable expecting the worst than hoping for the best? Hope feels risky. If you expect the worst and it happens, at least you saw it coming. If you hope for something good and it falls apart, that disappointment feels unbearable. So somewhere along the way, expecting the worst started to feel safer than wanting something good. So without really deciding to, you've made a quiet trade. Less devastation in exchange for less joy. It felt like protection once. But it also means missing out on a lot of good moments while you're busy waiting for the bad one. And the trade rarely feels like a choice, it just feels like how things are. If some of these sounded familiar, that doesn't mean something is wrong with you. It means your mind learned, at some point, that the world wasn't safe to trust fully. And it's been working overtime ever since to protect you from being surprised by pain again. That's not a flaw. It's a mind doing its job a little too well for a little too long. Here are a few small steps that can help, starting today. Step 1. When you notice yourself bracing for bad news, pause and name it out loud. Just say, I'm bracing right now. Naming it doesn't fix it instantly, but it creates a small gap between the fear and your reaction. Over time, that small gap is where things start to shift. Step 2. When something good happens, try staying with it for 10 extra seconds before your mind moves to, but what if? 10 seconds of just letting it be good. It might feel uncomfortable at first, that's normal. Discomfort here doesn't mean it's wrong, it just means it's unfamiliar. Step 3. Ask yourself, honestly, when was the last time the worst-case scenario you imagined actually happened? Most of the time, the answer is rarely, if ever. That gap between what you feared and what actually happened is worth noticing. Write it down if it helps. Sometimes seeing the pattern in your own words makes it easier to believe. Step 4. Practice letting one small thing go unprepared. Not a big risk, something low stakes. Let yourself walk into it without rehearsing every version of disaster first. See what it feels like to just show up. It won't feel natural the first time. It rarely does, the first time you try something new. None of these steps will undo years of an old pattern overnight. But each time you notice it instead of just living inside it, you're teaching your mind, slowly, that it's allowed to put the list down sometimes. So here's something to sit with tonight. What would it feel like, just for one evening, to expect that things might actually go okay? If this felt like it was speaking directly to you, you're not alone in it. and you're not broken for feeling it. If you want more of this kind of reflection, subscribe to Mind Antler and let me know in the comments which sign hit closest to home. Take care of that mind of yours. I'll see you next time. This is Dr. Antler. Does silence from someone feel like the beginning of losing them?